Welcome, Mississippi State fans and all SEC football fans. We don't discriminate here, Steve.
No.
Not on a game day like this. Gorgeous weather. Expectations for tomorrow are just as good here on the Starkville campus. Mississippi State University hosting Kentucky, 3 o'clock SEC Network. Steve, it's been a while since SEC season. Almost certainly over a month since Mississippi hosted anybody here at Scott Field. But now Kentucky comes to town. Bulldogs got a little momentum back last week, defeating Brigham Young. But Kentucky's a whole different breed of blue cat coming in.
They are, David, and one of the most dangerous things about this brand of cat, as you mentioned, is they believe they can win. And quite frankly, they are a whisker away from being 6-0. Now, the eternal optimist would say, you know what, they probably should be, but others would say, you know what, the flip side of that is they're a couple plays away from being 3-3. So this is a Kentucky team there's still some questions about, especially when it comes to pass defense. They're very, very strong run defensive, 10th in the country. But a lot of that is because of the fact that why run it when I can throw it and have great success and get yards and chunks? So there's still some plays to be made and some things to understand as Coach Dan Mullen passes us on his daily jog.
Yeah, the man's covering his miles here, but I wouldn't advise trying to talk to him at this moment because even though he's pounding the pavement, his mind's very much on tomorrow. Let's follow up on that, too, about Kentucky's pass defense against Mississippi State's passing offense. State has struggled a little bit sometimes, more erratic, I guess is a better phrase for it, to get the ball in downfield strikes. Kentucky, though, has really struggled, period, to defend the passing game. Is that something you, obviously, statistically, you think State would focus on it, but this is a ground-pounding offense the Bulldogs have. How much attention do you think they give to the passing game this week to try to establish that?
I think they have to, David, because you got to take what the defense gives you. And if the defense is going to give you the ability to get yards and chunks, you got to take it. Now, to be fair about this ground game and about this 10th-ranked national defense against the run, they have not played against any really prolific teams that run the football.
That is a good point, right?
The most prolific rushing team is Southern Miss, who averages 188 yards a game, which I believe is good enough for, I think, 40th in the country. And so Mississippi State runs for 262, which is 14th best in the country. And so this is the first real challenge that run defense has had. So, again, a lot of question marks there. But this Bulldog offense, David, they've got to find a way to make some plays down the field. Nick Fitzgerald last weekend, 19 of 30 with 7 drops. I mean, you just hang on to half of those passes, David, and you're possibly SEC Offensive Player of the Week. And so receivers have got to do their part. Nick Fitzgerald's got to do his part with ball placement. But I believe this is a defense that could be susceptible to the big play.
Another thing about Kentucky, and we talked about this Monday in our post-press conference wrap-up. Then again, later we talked to Nick Fitzgerald about it specifically on Tuesday night. He said, yes, Kentucky is a different type of defense in so many ways because they throw a lot of excuse me, getting all choked up about the resumption of SEC season here. Actually, there's all this pollen in the air. But he talked about Kentucky's a different. Sometimes they throw a 3-man front, 4-man front, 5-man front at you, and a lot of different coverages, blitzes. They'll overload one side, they'll overload the other side, and not come from those sides. So Fitzgerald's really got to be on his game reading those plays at the line of scrimmage.
I agree, David, and I expect Kentucky to come out and probably play some 2 deep safeties just to prevent anybody from getting behind them. Meg State kind of dinking and dunking and kind of put the big play and the big passing game probably down the road. And what I mean by that is State's going to have to be selective when they take their shots. And I believe what they'll do is they'll play those safeties over the top and keep everything in front of them so nobody gets in a deep third. And so as a result, accuracy's got to be there. You got to be real careful about throwing the ball behind players because next thing you know, a ball deflected off a receiver's hands becomes a sitting duck for a good safety. And so that's a big part of things. But I believe more importantly, David, this Bulldog defense ranked 8th nationally, a chance to face a sub-100 offense in Kentucky, and I believe that ultimately will be where the ball game is won or lost.
By the same token, Kentucky can be explosive offensively. Benny Snell can run on just about anybody if he gets those seams or you're a little careless in your support systems there. And, their quarterback, he's capable of pulling, tucking, going. He's made himself a better passer over the seasons. But really, if you stop the ground game, you kind of put Kentucky behind the proverbial 8 ball. You
do, David, and I won't say they're one-dimensional, but the running game is really what they want to do, and that's kind of what they did last year against Mississippi State. Of course, they're short a running back with JoJo Kemp moving on, but Snell has proven to be a very capable replacement and will be a star in this league, and he is the bell cow of that offense. Todd Grantham had more than his share of Kentucky last year at Louisville in the rivalry game, and you and I kind of traded some comments with the old coach early this week, and he knows who they're playing this week. But, David, Stephen Johnson has gotten better as a player. He's gotten better as a passer. The intermediate stuff sometimes is a little bit of a mystery for him, but he can throw the deep ball, and he's making better decisions this year. Last year, I believe he had 6 interceptions. At this point, he's only got 3 so far this year. So he's improved. State's going to have to bring a better effort than they saw last year in Lexington.
Veteran Bulldogs we've talked to of last year's game in Lexington, which, of course, I was there for, and Mississippi State played a pretty rough first half. Came out, played much better in the second half. Mark McLaurin picks up a ball, scoops it, scores it. All of a sudden, State's back in the game. They score on a great drive directed by Fitzgerald to put the Bulldogs ahead, but Kentucky's able to hit a couple of passes, hit a 51-yard field goal to win that game. There's a lot of Bulldogs here who remember that, and while they don't take it personally, this is not a rivalry game per se, even though they see each other, they let that one sting because a 7-year winning streak against the Wildcats got away. So they also know that Kentucky can be dangerous. Do you think that's a help or a hindrance going into tomorrow's game?
Oh, I think it helps. I think because they'll give Kentucky their proper respect. And last year State had a lead at the half despite sleepwalking through the first half. And then UK comes out and hits State with a haymaker on a little gadget play where Stephen Johnson lines up at receiver. They pitch it to him. He does a throwback. Next thing you know, the DBs are chasing. It's a touchdown. Then Nick Fitzgerald throws a pick six. So there's two big plays there. They were essentially gifted to Kentucky. The ball game boiled down to a career-long 51-yard field goal, from McGinnis. And so what's going to happen now is you learn from that, just like you did last weekend. BYU last weekend gifted a win for Mississippi State. State drops a touchdown pass in double overtime that would have advanced the ball game. You go out, you handle business. But this brand of team, this Kentucky team, believes they can win, where BYU had that self-fulfilling prophecy where they felt like, here we go again. If Kentucky's in the game in the fourth quarter, that's going to be something the Bulldogs are going to have to really contend with.
And it will be something new because whether they win or lose, every game the Bulldogs have played this year has been a blowout one way or the other, which has allowed some good things. Even when you're losing, you get some young players on the field. And that's proved helpful because the offensive line, again, we're really doubtful that Martinez Rankin plays tomorrow. Nothing official on that. He was supposed to begin practicing yesterday. Nobody will say on it either way. But if they do, Greg Island, who got his experience against Auburn, then started last week against BYU, he should be available. And now State knows how to mix and match linemen in a pinch because they've had more time to work on it without all the what-ifs there. As far as other health positions, Keith Mixon, a question mark also, Steve, but State should have some players who can fill in on the offensive side in those positions.
Well, they true. And I've been told Keith Mixon's likely a game day decision to be about what he can do. He got rolled up last weekend.
Twice, it looked like.
Yeah, and he's a guy that, he is really kind of beginning to come on. He had a couple drops last week too, but at the same time, he is an explosive player that really makes the offense go. So, yeah, he'd be a big loss. But that'll be a game-time decision. I don't think Martinez Rankin will play. And I'm calling like you, David. It's one of those things nobody will officially confirm, and you kind of feel like if he was going to play, that's good news. They'd want to get out there. So I expect Greg Island to start. I don't know if we get Martinez back for A&M or not. It's maybe one of those things where it's kind of a week-to-week deal. But I would not rule out him being out for at least a couple more weeks, just because of the fact I think fans need to prepare that it's not a week-to-week type deal. Greg Island acquitted himself pretty well last week. This is an opportunity for him against a pretty good pass rushing team in Kentucky to kind of earn his SEC teeth.
So, SEC season resumes tomorrow at Scott Field. Mississippi State hosting Kentucky at 3 o'clock. The Bulldogs are 1-2 in conference play, coming off a couple of rough losses at Georgia and Auburn, but they thumped LSU to open league play. They know what they can do, and now they've had a chance to work for a couple of weeks on what they did not do well. So, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Mississippi State hoping for a big crowd. I know, Steve, will be talking pregame about official visitors and unofficial visitors as well, on the recruiting side ahead of the game, and get whatever health updates we can as well. And we'd be remiss if we did not remind that the other part of it is homecoming. This is homecoming on the Mississippi State campus, and this is a special homecoming because the Queen is none other than the queen of Lady Bulldog basketball, or Bulldog basketball in general, Victoria Vivens. As much as I recall, the first student athlete to serve in that role, and certainly well deserved, the queen of the court is now queen of the court.
It is, David, and what a deserving young lady to win. She is kind of typifies the Mississippi State story, and comes from a small town and then come up here and has done some amazing things at Mississippi State, and will forever be remembered for her play on the court. But it's a really cool thing to see her exit Mississippi State as the homecoming queen too. I think that's a really cool story.
Also, need to throw in as well, you may have heard Mississippi State has arranged a scrimmage game, exhibition type, with Nebraska, 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon, free admission. Nobody has to pay to get in, but we would ask, and they're asking, that people donate to the Salvation Army, to MSU Student Relief. All funds raised will go to Hurricane Irma relief. And many Mississippi State people living in the Texas area, and even some on the Gulf Coast, were affected by this storm as well. So you'll be helping out your own, but mostly you'll just be helping out people who need the help this time of year. Mississippians are the most generous people in America. That's been proved statistically and is proved in all sorts of attitude and emotional ways. Here's your chance to step up to the plate and to get a good view of Coach Ben Howland's third Bulldog team as they get ready to play. It looks like they'll be without center Abdul Ado, which is a disappointment because everybody wants to see this guy play. And some other guys have been a little nicked up in the preseason, but still a good chance to watch them against a good, promising Nebraska team as well. Free admission. Come out, just watch the guys play and get an idea of what Bulldog basketball holds for the 2017-18 season ahead. So, from the Junction, Mississippi State, ahead of tomorrow's game day. As I say every time, you only get so many of these. Weather looks great. Be here for homecoming. Be here for SEC action. Be here for your Bulldogs. Bring them, ring them, and get this thing going back in the right direction for the league play. So, for Steve Robertson, for Mike Nemeth and Gene Swindoll, Paul Jones and Robbie Falk of Gene's Page 24/7, this is David Murray.